Turn with me to the book of the Psalms, and we're going to look at Psalm 77. And we're going to speak a little bit about emotions. Emotions. Emote icons. Emotions. Anybody like emoticons when you're sending off messages and you put a little emotion there, a little emoji? Funny where that name emoji came from. Anybody know where that word emoji came from? I wonder.
It's Japanese.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to look that up.
What it was. It's something to do with photography and emotions.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like moving pictures. Like emotions. So like emotions.
Oh, it's like emotional.
It actually means to emote.
It's like to emote. Yeah.
To be moved to the emotion.
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? So, I'm going to read the whole psalm. This is a psalm for the director of music. And it wasn't one of David's psalms. It was written by another guy called Asaph, who was like a chief musician during David's time. It may actually have been because there was another Asaph that lived much later on when Israel was in the time of exile, when they were in Babylon. During Daniel's time, actually, there was another Asaph who also wrote some psalms, and they included. So it may have been him. So this is what it says, starting from Psalm 77, verse 1. It says this: I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night, I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. So it was like, he stretched out his hands, and he would not be comforted. I remembered you, God, and I groaned. I meditated, and my spirit grew faint. You kept my eyes from closing. So he was like staying awake because of all these emotions in the night. I was too troubled to speak. Anybody ever sense that? Too troubled to speak. I thought about the former days, the years of long ago. I remembered my songs in the night. My heart meditated, and my spirit asked, will the Lord reject forever? Will he never show his favor again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? Then I thought, to this I will appeal. The years when the Most High stretched out his hand, his right hand. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider your works and meditate on your mighty deeds. Your ways, God, are holy. What God is as great as our God? You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the peoples. With your mighty arm, you redeemed your people, the descendants of Jacob and Joseph. The waters saw you, God. The waters saw you, and they withered. The very depths were convulsed. The clouds poured down water. The heavens resounded with thunder. Your arrows flashed back and forth. Your thunder was heard in the whirlwind. Your lightning lit up the world. The earth trembled and quaked. Your path led through the sea. Your way through the mighty waters. Though your footprints were not seen, you led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. So the latter part of that, the psalmist is remembering the children of Israel, how they were led out of Egypt through the Red Sea. When God led them, even though his footsteps were not seen, he was ahead of them with a cloud and with a pillar of fire, and he led them through the whole thing. But it starts off at the very beginning of the psalm, and this is what I want to speak about, is handling our emotions. Rightly handling our emotions. We have been made in God's image. Anybody know that?
Yes.
And God is an emotional person, an emotional being, put it that way. He emotes. There are things that get him angry. Anybody have anything that makes you angry?
Lots of things.
There are things that make him sad. Anybody have anything that makes you sad? There are things that make him happy. Anybody have anything that makes you happy? There are things that make him... Any other emotions? Come on, call out emotions.
Joyful.
Joy. Yes, you got a little dog called Joy.
Yes. Well,
Exhilaration.
Exhilaration, yeah. When you're really...
exasperated.
Sorry?
There's exasperation.
Exasperation, which is more like...
Defeated.
Disappointed.
Disappointed. That's a really good one, isn't it? When maybe you have an expectation and that expectation doesn't come about.
He doesn't feel depression, does he?
No.
Depression is slightly different. Depression is the cloud. Does God feel depression? No, he doesn't feel depression. No.
Not from him.
No, that's different. Any other emotion you can think about? What about like when your friends are really irritating? What do you feel?
Annoyance.
Annoyed, yeah? Do you sometimes feel like when you've lost your patience?
Frustrated.
Frustrated?
Frustration.
Like, Jesus sometimes felt that about his disciples. Like, how long do I have to put up with you guys? Like, oh my goodness. How long? Like, seriously? So even he felt that. And God can feel that sense of, like, how much do I have to put up with this? God emotes, and we have been made in God's image. Therefore, it is inevitable that we will emote because we are like Him. Emotions are actually, they have a number of services that they perform. There is a number of functions, a reason. Have you ever thought why you feel emotions? Anybody have any ideas why you feel emotions?
You need to feel something in your life. A reaction to something that has happened.
Yeah.
Sometimes emotions guide us, misguide us.
Yeah, they can guide us, but what Grace said is a really good one that actually help us to react. Something happens and then we react.
Process.
We can receive something and then we can sort of go, boom, we can react. And they help us to react to the environment around us. Imagine if you never had emotions. Would life be good?
No.
I don't think so.
Some emotions, maybe.
I don't think we worship the Lord with emotions.
Sorry?
I don't think we worship the Lord.
Yeah, it would be difficult to worship.
You won't feel sympathy, you won't feel struggle, you won't feel hurt, you won't feel happy,
Yes.
happiness,
Yes, true.
Help us regularly.
any emotion.
Yes. Do you know, there are people actually who have...
You'd be better off dead without emotions.
You'd be better off dead. Ooh. Do you know, there are some people who have so detached themselves from their emotions, and this is not to accuse anybody, because I'll come to that in a bit, or to condemn anybody. Sometimes people go through things that are really difficult, really, really hard to cope with in life. And so what they do is they feel because it's too hard for me to react, I'll just detach. I'll separate, I'll disconnect from that thing so that I don't have to keep reacting to it. And then they become detached emotionally. And then what then happens is they go through life a bit like a robot. It's like things happen and they're just like, doing, I don't really care. I'm just going to go through it. Now, God gave us emotions, and there are two things that the emotions do. Number one, they allow us to react and respond to things in the creation around us, in the world around us. So when things happen to us, when we get hurt, there is something we can release. If we didn't release it, we would hold on to it. So emotions kind of allow us to release, to react. Even tears. Tears are actually a good thing. Anybody think tears are a good thing?
Yeah.
Exactly. They actually are medicinal. There is a physical, it's been tested, it's been looked at biologically, that actually there is something, a chemical they release in your body, tears, that allows you to heal, that allows your body to actually become more whole. And if that didn't happen, the things that we went through would actually be more destructive. There'd be more whatever. So emotions help us to respond to the world around us, and they enable us to process it. The other thing they enable us to do, emotions are a little bit like when you have a car. If you have a car, you have a dashboard, and in that dashboard you have lights. Now my old car, don't do this, this is a very bad thing, by the way. My old car, the one I had before this one, had an engine warning light that was always on. And I took it to the garage the first time that the light came up. And a number of mechanics looked at it and they said, we couldn't fix it. We know it is a problem with this particular make of car, but we can't really fix it. And so they told me, do you know what, just ignore it. There's nothing wrong with it. The actual engine, you checked your engine all through and there's nothing wrong with the engine, just ignore it. So I was then driving the car. Every time I drove my old car, I would say a little prayer. I'd be like, Lord, keep this car going, please keep this car going. There is something where emotions are a little bit like that light on the dashboard that helps you to see that there is something happening in the engine. If you didn't have emotions, you wouldn't sometimes know the effects of what somebody did. Let me give you an example. Sometimes somebody can say something to you in passing, and your emotions react. And your emotions then tell you that actually what they've said had something behind it. It had a spirit behind it. It had something that was causing you to react. Now that is like that dashboard kind of giving you... Sometimes they can even say something nice. They can even say something good, but actually that good thing can actually come with a little bit of a twist. Like, hey, you're really, really, really nice. You're really, really amazing, aren't you?
That's really cool.
You're really, really charming, but actually what they want is they want something from you. And so your emotions, you can sometimes in your emotions, you can feel this person's trying to exploit me. They're trying to use me. They're trying to get something from me. So emotions serve these two purposes where they help us to react to things, and then they also help us to understand or to know what's really going on behind the scenes. Let me give you an example. Anger. When you feel angry, very often it's like a warning light that's telling you that there is injustice. God created anger. He also feels angry. And wherever there's anger, there is this sense, it's telling you that inside you, because God created all of us with a sense of justice, with this sense that there is a right way in which I'm supposed to be treated. And the reason why He created us that way is because we have value, we have worth. There's a preciousness to us. And if somebody doesn't respect that preciousness, there is something in you that will react through anger if we feel that we have been ravished. And it's unjust. So anger is telling you that there is something of injustice that's happening.
We wouldn't know what good is if we didn't know what evil was.
Yeah,
Well,
true, that's true. There is an element of that. There is an element of that as well, that actually it helps us to know what's really going on. So emotions help us to understand what's going on. Now, there is a right way to deal with emotions, and there is a wrong way to deal with emotions. There is a right way to deal with emotions, and there is a wrong way to deal with emotions. Emotions are meant to be emoted, put it very simply. So we're meant to, when something happens, we're meant to feel the emotion, and then we're meant to release it. Emotions are meant to be released. They're not meant to be... I heard a teacher putting it this way, that when somebody does something to us, it's like a wave in the sea, and things go whoosh,
So the tsunami.
But the wave, sometimes it feels like a tsunami, exactly. But the wave doesn't just stay up, does it? We're supposed to release them, and then the wave is supposed to gradually subside and go down. And that's how God created us. So when we emote, what it does is allows us to release the emotion, allows us to release that feeling on the inside. The psalmist here, at the very first verse, he says, I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God. God, hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. And at night, I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. Our emotions are meant to be something that we release so that we can find this really important word called comfort. I remember many times when I was growing up as a little child and I hurt myself, and sometimes my mom would take me, pick me up, and just give me a hug, just give me a cuddle. And what that would do, it's not like it would fix the pain, because the pain, I would still be feeling the pain, but it's because she's comforted me. There is some way that she's met the need inside me that somehow allows me to then face the pain because I feel comforted. So emotions are meant to cause us to kind of have this wave that goes up, but then what then is supposed to happen is we are meant to receive comfort. Now, as we're coming to the communion table, Jesus went through a lot of struggle. He went through a lot of difficulty. By the way, one of the things I feel quite strongly about is that it's okay to emote. It's okay to even cry in public. Is it okay for grown men to cry in public? Because we live in a culture that says it's a bit embarrassing, it's a bit whatever, it's a bit not
How
right.
come men can't cry in public but women can?
That's a good question. Because maybe there's a sort of macho thing. We want to appear as strong, we want to appear as whatever. But actually, even God cries. And a lot of that is a cultural thing, by the way. Because you go to other cultures, there are other cultures where men do cry. Go to Spain, for example. Men do cry. Go to Middle Eastern cultures, the men weep, they cry. Jesus wept, he cried sometimes. So it's okay to cry, and it's okay to cry in public. It doesn't make us any less, it doesn't make us any whatever. But the purpose of crying, the purpose of emoting, the purpose of releasing emotions is so that we can receive comfort. Is so that we can be comforted. This is the right way of handling emotions. So when something happens, we are meant to then emote, and we're meant to release that emotion, and then the idea is that we then find comfort. That's the good and proper way of dealing with it. If somebody hurts me, if somebody teases me, if somebody abuses me, I am meant to feel angry. It's okay to feel angry. But then the plan is then from that anger, that it doesn't just stay anger all the time. The wave doesn't just stay up there all the time where I'm constantly feeling angry. But actually, God's intention is that we would release that anger, and that as we release that anger, we then find comfort. Now, the way that we emote is going to be different for each one of us. It's going to be different for you, it's going to be different for me, for all of us. You can't even be twins, but the way that you will emote, the way that you release your emotions will be different. So for example, for me, I like going for walks. If I feel something is like really tensing me up, it's like really stressing me up, I just decide, you know what, I want to just go out and just go for a walk. I want to give you guys freedom while you're here. Maybe it's a nice thing that we have an area outside. If you want to if you're feeling like emotionally, you're feeling like, just go out and feel free to chill out, relax, and let your emotions kind of subside. Sometimes we need a space, we need an environment where we can just release those emotions. At Greenlee Manor, they do have what they call, I think it's called an anger corner or something. There's loads of plates, proper ceramic plates, and there's a great big brick wall. And the idea is basically you just go and you throw the plate against the wall. Yeah, proper plates. Can you imagine how satisfying it is? You get protective whatever, you get like protective clothing, and and it's the most satisfying feeling. If you're feeling really stressed up on the inside, very often people actually release their anger when they're there, and then it causes them to then release other emotions that they've been holding on to. They suddenly become aware of maybe grief, maybe depression, maybe sadness, and all sorts of other things, for which the catalyst is just that anger where they chuck a plate. Sometimes they don't have to chuck many plates. Sometimes it's just one plate, and that is alone enough to whatever. And it's not done in a human sort of way. More often what they do is they pray. They actually say, okay, God, would you help this person to release their emotions? It's a good thing to pray that sometimes. If you're feeling angry, and you're constantly feeling angry, which is what the psalmist says here, he cries out to God, and he's basically saying, Lord, this is my distress, this is my struggle. And it's a good thing to say to God, God, help me to release my pain. Help me to release my angst. The psalmist says here, Lord, I remembered and I groaned in my heart. And I meditated in my spirit and I grew faint. And I wasn't even able to sleep. I tried to close my eyes and it was like I just couldn't sleep because of all the struggle that was going on. Now, what the psalmist then decided to do in this passage, he made a very important decision. He decided to remember what God had done for them. See, sometimes we can be so surrounded by the emotions that we forget God's goodness. I don't know if you noticed it. It was something that I did this morning as we started the service. Because we were all like, all this stuff that's been whatever, and all the stuff that's been left here, and we were all sort of angst. And in my spirit came, let us stop and remember God's goodness. So it's a good thing sometimes to have a bit of perspective. Yes, it's a good thing to emote and release that emotion, but to have a bit of perspective. God is still fighting for me. I'm going to come to the communion table, and the reason I wanted to speak about emotions is because Isaiah 53, which speaks of the death of Jesus, says that Jesus carried our griefs and our sorrows. Jesus carried our griefs and our sorrows. What does that mean? It means when he died on the cross, he was feeling the pain and the hurt of the things that you and I go through in our life. And now we have an opportunity, like this morning, for us to give Jesus those same hurts and feelings, to bring them to Jesus and say, Jesus, you carried this on the cross. I want to release this to you, and I want to release it now. We're going to do that as we have communion. And this is what the psalmist did, really. And I leave you with this, really. He said, I cried out to God for help. I want to encourage you to involve God in your emotions. Always involve God in your emotions. When I was growing up, my parents told me when I was growing up, and I bless them, I forgive them for this, but they told me when I'd done something bad, and sometimes they'd tell me off, and I'd start crying as they're telling me off. And sometimes my dad would tell me, go upstairs, go to your room, cry, and then when you finish crying, come back and I'll talk to you. It was like, go and clean up your mess, and then when you finish crying, come back and I'll talk to you. Now, what that did in me is it gave me this impression that my father only wants to talk to me when I am all okay, when I'm all sorted. And I then imposed that to God. But actually God is not interested in my emotions, but actually He wants me to come to Him when everything is okay, which is a really wrong thing. I want to encourage you all, when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling sad, when you're feeling happy, even joy, involve God in your emotions as much as possible. So very quickly, Jesus Christ said that I am the bread of life. He who eats of me will not hunger, but that he will have that bread, that eternal bread that gives life. Remember, He carried your griefs and your sorrows. I want you to do an exercise today. As you take communion, as you have this, give God your emotions. Release to God your emotions. And we can all do that. Just ask God, Lord, where is my heart? What am I feeling right now? And I want to give you my emotions. And be very real. Be very, very honest with Him. Lord, this is what I feel. And I want to thank you that you carried my emotions. You carried my griefs and my sorrows. And you made them your very own. Jesus, would you bless this bread to us now? I pray that as we eat it, that it will be to us something of that release of the Holy Spirit, of that life-giving flow from Calvary. Lord, would you enable this to be healing even to our being? That, Lord, we can release to you our emotions, we can release to you how we feel, because Jesus, you carried our griefs and our sorrows. Amen.